Okay, I'm back. All right, this is part two. I want you to think about what I was talking about a little earlier on about the spirit husbands and the spirit wives. And most of this is most importantly to understand is that these are there to make you feel like that you really are due this type of affection, so you keep that secret. But remember, we're dealing with demonic forces. Ephesians 6 and 12 says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and against powers and against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." And so I want you to think about some of these areas that I'm trying to show you that the enemy is trying to do, and want to give you some of the signs of what these physical attacks are going to be. That means from these water spirits, and many of these are not that I'm sharing now, they're not exhaustive. That means there can be a whole lot of other reasons why, depending on your life and your experiences, that you may be going through now. And so one of the ones you keep having, like I said before, we call it a wet dream, or this dream feel like something is touching you or holding you down. But there's unusual types of dreams that you're having, particularly of being in water, okay, and having this sexual encounter with this unknown or understanding what this image looks like. But you know that it's something there, and it's pursuing you, and most of the time it's pursuing you by a water-based entity. And so this is the reason why it's called a water spirit. The other part of it is the physical signs. You may have some unexplained illnesses, especially those linked to water, or feeling an unusual sense of heaviness or pressure in your body. You may even start having difficulties in your marriage or your relationships. You have this persistent issue or struggle all the time, especially in marital relationships. I went through that where I didn't understand why I didn't want my mate to touch me in certain areas and things like that. You may have a struggle of intimacy. And so that's the other sign that you know that maybe this is your spirit spouse or spirit husband in some way, or spirit wife. The other part of it is the spiritual disturbance. And this is a big one because you start feeling spiritually blocked in your mind. You can't pray right. You can't seem to try to connect to anything that gives the Bible an opportunity to come into your study. You don't want to think about anything other than you keep having memories of what's blocking you, or what you remember, or what you can see that's resisting you from going forward and giving God praise and worship. So you have a persistent sense of spiritual oppression. You don't feel like that you want to build anybody. But a lot of these causes of these issues can easily come from some people that believe in these issues from their bloodline, from curses in their bloodline, things that have affected others in their family, especially the curse of the bastard. That's a big one. The curse of the bastard really brings in all types of spirits to attack the woman and the man who have been abandoned by their fathers or their mothers. And so it manifests to the water spirit. Don't want to leave out the occult practices. A lot of times they engage in different occult practices, or they're involved in practices, such as teachings that have opened doors from people thinking that they need to listen to these different types of platforms and teaching. Maybe like on this realm, when people are listening and thinking about things that God is not even in it. And that's why we have to pray about what we listen to and why we're listening to it, and what's important about you needing to hear it. And is it God, or is it someone just trying to seem super spiritual? And of course, we know it's unconfessed sins when your life is just all in shambles, and you still thinking that if you can just keep acting spiritual and acting saved, and you're not saved or set free, then these unresolved sins and disobedience, they leave you vulnerable to these spiritual attacks. And we want to leave out the cultural, realistic, I'm called ritualistic practices. Most of the time, depending on your culture or where you came from, these are aligned with what you believe. And so the devil has access to you because of what you believe. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you some signs of some things that you need to consider before I give you a little bit more on next week. But I want you to think about how these spirits come in and how they actually rest, and how you need to think about, am I really praying for real? Am I really fasting for real? And have I really sought deliverance ministry support? Because a lot of people talk real good about they got help or they got counsel, and many are getting a whole bunch of coaching on what you can do to be able to become bigger and better and what your dreams and visions are, and you still are packing these spirits with you night and day and not getting any deliverance. But the repentance and the confession is very important. Any sins known, anything that you know that you need to look at that has been with you old or new, any specific interpretations or any type of culture and religious types of behaviors or groups that you've involved yourself in, you need to think about that. What have you made Lord, or what have you made a covenant with, that these spirits have permission to be there? Most of them are there because they have permission to be there, because you won't remove them because of shame, because of fear, because you feel that this is it. Now, this is one of the things that I want to bring out. One of the confessions that I want to share, and I'll share more whenever I get my book done. The one of the things that I found that is very significant, they like to move things. Now, we're not talking about poltergeist. We're talking about this water spirit that takes your clothes, and in particular, your clothes or your underwear or your bras or things like that, and they move them and put them in places that you would never believe that they would be at. And you wondering where that particular bra at, where that particular underwear is, and they move them in a place, and they begin to take a connection with you so that you can hope and think about it all day long about what am I thinking about? Are these underwear I had on then, or why these underwear, these particular ones, are so important to be missing? Okay, so this is an extreme thing, but especially underwear and bras when it comes to women, they begin to take them and they move them, and they tend to connect them to whatever it is that you may be longing for, or whomever it is you may be thinking about, and they may put them somewhere in something that you are connected with, or something that you may be trying to get better in or better about or to do something with, and they'll remind you that they are with you. The other thing about this, you'll find yourself very sexually confused. Sometimes because people have looked at porn, they've looked at all types of movies and things sexually, they begin to confuse you and manipulate you to deny who your identity really is, so that your destiny will be stagnated. So this is the reason why these marine spirits or water spirits, whatever you want to call them, is so important to understand. The other thing what I want you to realize is that what they link you to, if you're having a dream about an intimate time with someone, that you've given them a glass of water, or you all are sipping out of the same water, anything like that is dealing with water or some type of passionate way of drink in a seductive way, that spirit now is showing you that it has part of your life and moving you in the fashion of attacking you in your sleep through this type of way to feel intimate, to feel connected. The other part is if you see yourself swimming in a pool. This is another one that a lot of people see themselves swimming, or in this deep wave of swimming, trying to reach a particular destiny. You see yourself swimming in a pool or even in an ocean, or you see yourself gazing upon water for long periods of time. There's nothing wrong with us sitting by water, but you think about those things that you've given it permission to stay, so it starts to move closer into you because you have given it permission to stay. So now it tries to find ways to woo you in by allowing you to gaze upon the water, trying to keep you, and wooing you and wanting to make you feel like that everything is comfortable. And then all of a sudden you may have this sudden dream, or a dream may switch, and now you feel like you're drowning in the water. Whenever there's a bunch of water situations going on in your dream, or even if you see snakes in your dream. I know many of us have, many of you feel like it's the enemy, but especially if there's snakes around water. If you see these snakes in the dream from time to time, and then you find these different ways that they enter in to attack you or look like they're coming after you in the water, most of this stuff is generational. Most of the stuff they enter in through these what they call access or permissive generational issues of worshiping their different idols and different type of religious practices in your bloodline. Who did they worship when your family worshiped when they got rid of worship? Who were they worshiping to? And then you think about men who were very whorish and abandoned their children, or abandoned you when you got pregnant. Think about this type of adulterous issue that maybe your husband or your wife may have been doing, that is all type of spirit of bastard or abandonment or divorce in the bloodline. Many of these are there because of the spirit of the husband in the spirit realm, and the bastard thinking about the spirit wife and the spirit husband. Listen to me. Many of these are there because we refuse to recognize that God is trying to talk to us about things that we're ignoring, these signs that He's trying to say, this is not of me. I'll be back next week to talk a little bit more in depth about some things that I experienced and pray that it'll help a sister and a brother out. Thanks for joining me.